Lately, we've been hearing a lot about the tension between North Korea and the international community. But why is North Korea gaining power on the international context? In this video, we will use the concepts of totalitarianism, power, and evil to explain the case of North Korea with a special focus in the nuclear weapons.
First of all, we are going to explain North Korea's type of government, which is totalitarian. According to Franz Neumann's typology, totalitarian governments draw on exacerbated repression on their opponents. Its distinctive trait is the use of ideology and political propaganda as a form of mobilization and manipulation. Totalitarianism governments are the only ones whose intention is to establish a total domination of its societies. It is also the only system who induces continuous terror among citizens to remain alive. There are 7 main characteristics of totalitarianism. First, presence of an omnipotent leader. Second, an important and powerful number of supporters. Third, an official ideology. Fourth, media manipulation, media controlled by the government. Fifth, extermination of political enemies. Sixth, centralized government. Totalitarians want the control of every civil aspect. Seventh, a certain formation of masses like the idolatry to the leader, intolerance to different political ideas, deep respect to tradition, amongst them.
North Korea is an emerging power of Asia and the 11th biggest economy in the world.
It is also one of the most developed nations in technology.
According to J.T. Perry's perspective, governments do evil. In different terms, the scale of damage can vary and it can increase exponentially, like the North Koreans' nuclear threat. The evils of state violence require that we notice and become conscious so that we can do something about them and change them, which, from John Cotter's perspective, with the lack of awareness, we risk being overwhelmed by the pathological aspects of modern society. North Koreans are not property of Kim Jong-un's government, and therefore the laws he enforces that are totalitarian and extreme become crimes to humanity. The fact that governments, like the North Korean one, use violence and it's permitted by the law, described as the rule of law, is absurd. One can assert with confidence that repressive regimes are consistent with the rule of law precisely because their policies follow legal forms. This explains how law doesn't solve the state's violence and abuse of power inflicted on its people. North Korean power is based on the nuclear weapons it has, and if it's a government that controls everything in his country, such as businesses, isolation policy, media, religion, trade unions, politics, education, etc., then it's clear it represents a threat to the international order system we live in.
With the previous explanation, we can introduce to the North Korean nuclear activity and how it affects internationally. The crisis development started on October 2002 with the suspension of all exportation from the US, causing North Korea's dropout of the Non-Proliferation Nuclear Agreement. Later, in January 2003, the reactivation of the nuclear plant in Yongbyon placed North Korea as a threat for international peace and security. As a consequence, the US demanded the complete, verifiable, and irreversible dismantling of nuclear programs. North Korea responded to this through blackmail, causing multilateral conversation between US, South Korea, Japan, China, and Russia. North Korea threatened to make nuclear tests, declaring negotiation is useless. Nuclear weapons modify the concept of what power means in traditional international relations. In this struggle, power is measured depending on the possession or fabrication of nuclear equipment and eventually ballistic missiles. There is a direct relation between nuclear capacity and the increase of power. In this way, the nuclear power determines the circumstances above the political or economical power. In this specific case between US and North Korea, both with nuclear capacity, North Korea in one side, establishing they are not quitting their nuclear programs without before obtaining a clear non-aggressive agreement from the US, and the US, in another side, being one of North Korea's targets. As North Korea leader once expressed, we manage a regime capable of building weapons instead of food. So, what are our expectations for the future?
The UN Security Council unanimously adopted last month against North Korea in the response to its missile tests. The measure came on the eve of the 22nd anniversary of the attack on Hiroshima, an event that burned the threat of warfare into Japanese psyche. It has been expected for a while potential threat from North Korea for the 6 nuclear tests. It's unclear how the world will respond to North Korea, since there is an unknown variable now that America has a new president. The only facts known are that warnings have been sent to Trump to stop the military movements to the region, but in response, Trump only has answered with aggression, saying that they will be met with fire, fury, and frankly power. Trump's backup to this statement has been that Korea has been threatening beyond a normal statement. Yet no solid answer has been said. North Korea states that if the aggressions of America don't stop, the nuclear missile tests either. The surrounding countries are vulnerable more than any other for the consequences of the missile, creating more of an international attack and possible transformation into the worldwide situation since China, Russia, and many other countries will be sucked in immediately.
But how these issues could be solved? The international characters know they need to stop the expanding of this nuclear crisis, establishing there are three ways to stop the development of this threat. First, military intervention. It is a risky and dangerous option because if there is a mistake, radiation can be spread. This option was almost immediately dropped out because of the limited knowledge that participants have on the topic, such as where are the nuclear material storages. Second, the eradication of the regime with troops intervention. It is also a weak option because it is an unyielding regime, and this strategy could possibly lead to an international military conflict. Third, negotiation. It is the most viable option at the moment, with the goal of dismantling North Korean nuclear programs. To conclude, the most pacific option is the third one, because the first two could guide us to a nuclear conflict, and this would cause serious problems or even risk our existence. For example, in 1945, we seen the first usage of a nuke's effect in Hiroshima on August 6 and Nagasaki on August 9, causing the deaths of 90,000 to 166,000 approximately in Hiroshima, and in Nagasaki 263,000 deaths estimated, just without counting victims of radiation who survived the attack. There has been a tremendous advance in nuclear technology on powerful countries without considering countries who have secret nuclear weapons. Imagine the devastating effect that a nuclear war nowadays would leave behind. That's why the governments need to watch their steps because a wrong one could cost hundreds of lives.